Welcome to the latest episode of Cybersecurity Awareness Month podcast series, a key part of India Insights podcast collection. I'm your host Pallavi, and today we're navigating to the intricate world of automotive cybersecurity. We have the privilege of welcoming Akshay Tiku, partner at EY India, to our show. Akshay is a seasoned professional with over 18 years of experience in the field of cybersecurity, focusing on managed security, automotive security, OT, IoT security, and data security. Akshay brings a wealth of global experience in various facets of cybersecurity, including IT risk management, penetration testing, and business resilience. His credentials include CISA, ISO 27001, ISO 20000, ISO 22301 certifications, and he is recognized as a lead privacy assessor. Akshay, welcome to the podcast, and it's a pleasure to have you on this episode.
Hey, thanks, Pallavi. It's really a pleasure from my side also to be here. And again, thank you for inviting me here and selecting this topic. It's really something that is very critical to the world nowadays.
Thank you, Akshay. Looking forward for the discussion. To start off, could you highlight the importance of cybersecurity in the automotive industry and the unique challenges it faces today, especially with the rise of connected and autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, good question. In fact, when we talk about the automotive industry as a whole, right? So we do talk about one is a traditional security that we talk about, which is the enterprise. Then it moves on to a lot of digital applications that automakers today use, for example, the dealer management system, the customer management system. Then a host of security requirements comes through from a plant perspective that we also talk about. We call it OT security, operational technology security, where we look at how we ensure that the automated systems within the plant are working correctly. And then finally, the most important part, and probably something that we will put a lot of emphasis today, is securing the vehicle in itself, be it a passenger vehicle, be it a commercial vehicle, because typically when we think about vehicles, we would probably just stop at passenger vehicles, but commercial vehicles make a bulk of the overall automotive security use case. And of course, electric vehicles nowadays are bringing in a big threat landscape as well. So when we talk about these, the most important aspect when you look at a vehicle is safety. So your vehicle, and as a user also, I would want the vehicle to be safe and I want the vehicle to be reliable. Modern vehicles essentially now are, kind of relying more on critical functions like braking, steering, or advanced driver system, which is called ADAS in common parlance. All of this is heavily reliant on software. So the moment software comes into the picture, vulnerabilities come into the picture, and this becomes a very important area that we need to prevent against, malicious attacks, so that we can kind of ensure vehicle safety and reliability of also the passengers which are in the vehicle. The second aspect, why it makes it important is from a data protection perspective. Nowadays, you would know, with all the rulings that have come on data protection and the new law. So vehicles today collect a lot of data. Where you are going, GPS tracks that, your behavior in terms of how you drive, so on and so forth. So this also becomes a big threat area, and from an automotive security perspective. And then you have a lot of innovation going on, connected cars, electric vehicles, and so many things now that come within the car, which kind of increases the attack surface. Now we are more and more digital. For example, cars are no longer like the traditional cars. They are more attuned to, I would say, mobile phones, right? Where you can uh, install more and more apps. But mobile phones have a life of 2 or 3 years. Cars have a life of 15 to 20 years. So that's where the challenge also comes in. And then, of course, regulatory compliance is another aspect which has probably come in international as well as local. So that also adds to a lot of those importance aspects. The other part of the question you talked about was, I think, around challenges, right? So again, challenges are also linked here. As I mentioned, connected vehicles, you have so many things which are connected. Your stereo system is connected. You can talk to the car and tell it to open the windows, switch on the AC. Now, all of that also brings in, a lot of extended attack surface. In addition to that, there is a lot of risks which come from the supply chain. So if you understand the automotive industry, a car has so many components which come from various different vendors, right? All of them have to work towards security to ensure that the car is secure. So, and then of course, as I mentioned earlier, the long lifespan, the car is there for 15 or 20 years. You have to ensure security from all types of vulnerabilities that may come 10, 12, 13, 14 years later. That's kind of the which brings up the overall enormity of the challenge that the automotive industry is also facing. So yeah.
Thank you, Akshay. Moving on, how are the international standards and regulatory frameworks shaping the development of robust cybersecurity in the automotive sector? And according to you, what proactive measures should industry players take to enhance their cyber defenses?
Oh, actually, these regulatory frameworks are actually taking I would say, a pivotal role in shaping the practices because, and it's needed. If you really see that, the automotive industry per se is so diverse and, the cars are sold, let's say if it's a German car, it is sold all over the world. It is an Indian manufacturer, it is sold all over the world. So there has to be standardization. So what these international standards do is they help in standardizing the approach towards cybersecurity. So the kind of the lead on that was taken through there's a regulatory framework, the UNEC WP29. So that kind of mandates comprehensive cybersecurity and a lot of the requirements that a particular vehicle should fulfill. And a lot of countries are actually signatories to this UN regulation, which makes it mandatory for them to implement these comprehensive security measures. And for this compliance, this regulatory framework which is there, the standard which there's an ISO standard called ISO 21434 that ensures that all manufacturers adhere to the same security protocols. In fact, to take an example, in India also there is a draft standard which is called AIS 189 and followed up by AIS 190, which once approved, probably very soon it will get approved. It will mandate the application of this security standard to cars in India before they get any type of approval to get on the road. So, there's something called type approval. So it will be required for these organizations to achieve the certification and constantly monitor the security threats. So, this is all possible with the help of the global standards which have evolved and the frameworks which have evolved. And this also helps in kind of setting up a consumer trust. If I am using connected vehicles, I would be more comfortable knowing that there are certain level of security practices which are being used, right from risk management, etc., to kind of enable that I'm sitting in a safe car, or the vehicle that is on the road is safe. So that's more on the role of regulatory frameworks and how they are shaping the industry. The From an industry perspective, while those standards are here, I would say certain proactive measures that uh, they are some of them are taking, some of them are kind of getting pushed through from the regulatory perspective is first adopting these, the ISO 21434 as the default standard, adopting the standard and integrating it with the overall security practice within the firm. So that's one proactive measures that organizations should take. Some of them have already started taking, but it needs to go down to the other uh, OEMs which manufacture or tier one organizations themselves to adopt these practices. They should be regularly conducting risk assessments, evaluate any potential vulnerability. For example, let's say a new patch or a new functionality is added to your telemetric system, or let's say your infotainment system. Now, your infotainment system is connected through your, which is called the onboard computer of the car or the ECUs to the various other functions. So if there is and through Wi-Fi and through Bluetooth. So if there is a security vulnerability that a hacker potentially can exploit, then that will lead to compromise of the vehicle overall. So make sure that the patches are regularly updated from a pushing those patches to vehicles, making sure you're following secure software development practices, monitoring such incidents. One important aspect of the regulatory framework is that all OEMs will have to establish a vehicular SOC, a VSOC. Just like we have a security operations center in enterprise, we need to have a security operations center which monitors all the vehicles which are there on the road and looks at their real-time security posture and alerts them if there is something from a security perspective. So that's a regulatory requirement, which once AIS 189 comes into effect, will become applicable for India as well. So, and one important aspect is collaboration. We collaborating with a lot of industry peers and other automotive uh, organizations which are there to kind of share the threat intelligence and kind of the best practices. So these are the certain things which I believe, and to in addition to that, the last thing that kind of comes to my mind is ensuring that whatever security practices you want to adopt, also pushing them down the line to your suppliers. So somebody who supplies you a braking system, somebody supplies a headlight system, somebody supplies, let's say, the Bluetooth module. So you're making sure that these practices are also pushed down to those component manufacturers so that the entire vehicle as a package is a secured vehicle. So these are certain proactive measures which I believe should be kind of deployed.
Thank you, Akshay. In context of increasing cyber threats, how vital is collaboration among automotive stakeholders in mitigating risks? And in addition to that, what should vehicle owners like myself know about protecting their cars from cyber vulnerabilities?
Oh, good question. As I was referring to, the last point where we talked about collaboration, right? So there are various stakeholders when we talk about the vehicle ecosystem. It's of course the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, who kind of manufactures your vehicle itself, right? Then there are a host of stakeholders which are what we call tier one or tier two suppliers who provide your batteries, who provide your electrical system in the car, so on and so forth, right? So all of these need to collaborate together to ensure that whatever risks are, because see, everything is, so what we also call connected vehicles now is, we actually call them software defined vehicles, SDVs. So everything has a lot of software coding onto it. And where, as I said earlier, wherever software comes into the picture, automatically a vulnerability also comes into the picture. So all of these people should need to collaborate to ensure that the risks are kind of mitigated. Also, you know, work in a standardized manner, and adopt those best practices and even share those best practices with your industry peers through all the autonomous, the bodies which are there to kind of, as a forum for all the automotive industry and the stakeholders of automotive industry, be it the suppliers, uh, the user of the vehicle themselves, the fleet management operators, the government as a big stakeholder, the highway authority as a stakeholder, the smart cities as stakeholders. So all of these stakeholders should have to work together because at the end of the day, the biggest risk is the risk of sabotage on a large scale. Very important to share these and collaborate, and the learnings have to be kind of distributed. Of course, the regulatory frameworks helps to kind of standardize all of this, but this has to be done to increase consumer trust, but also the safety of the consumer who's actually using the vehicle itself. So these are the kind of what from a collaboration perspective that needs to be done. So if I look at you asked one question that as a user, how would you, what is it that you would want to do? Yeah, so I guess I would answer that in terms of what I try and do because I'm also a user of a vehicle owner, right? Ensure that my software in the car is regularly updated. That is what I generally do. I go, if there is anything that needs to be updated, I keep regularly checking if there is notification that a new update or security update, etc., is kind of already there. So I ensure that we update that particular software. Then on your uh, when you use whatever, if you look at connected cars now, there are apps which have, password requirements. So use strong and unique passwords, not something that you use everywhere, because at the end of the day, if those thing gets, kind of compromised, it is your own vehicle that we are talking about. So that becomes very important. Uh, then be very careful, especially when you're looking at and using third party apps. Let's say you have uh, your infotainment system, right? You would within the infotainment system have the app store. There are measures available where you can kind of side load apps. So be very careful when you are using any of these apps, and be very cautious as to what you need in your car. Only use that much, because at the end of the day, you also need to ensure, because there's limited storage space available there also. So just use for what you require. Just don't put. I know that I know a few people who've installed, let's say, games on their the infotainment system, which may not really be required. So but be very careful and selective on what you install in your car. Of course, make sure that your Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth within the car are secured, and very important from a physical security perspective. Protect your vehicle's physical access points. The key fobs, the remote control which are there are stored securely. Do not expose your vehicle to unnecessary, uh, kind of external influence from a physical security perspective. And at the end of the day, for everybody, please be informed. Make sure you know what kind of threats are there, and be aware of what's going on in the surrounding. That's essentially what I would say. Educate yourself, which are the aspects of you should do with the with your car and your vehicle that you are an owner of. So these are the key things that I believe if you adopt these practices, they can significantly reduce the risk from a cyber aspect.
Thank you, Akshay. Now, before we let you go, we had one last question. Looking ahead, according to you, what are the key trends in automotive cybersecurity, and how can the industry prepare for these evolving challenges? And in addition to that, for cybersecurity professionals, any skills that they can focus to specialize in this domain as well?
Okay, so let me think. So key trends in the automotive security, I would say rise of connected and autonomous vehicles, which also means integration with IoT devices, basically expanding your threat landscape. One second trend I see is a lot of cloud-based security solutions are kind of growing within the automotive industry, and you know so those needs to have those. This is another thing that a lot of things is becoming cloud-based, even the security solutions and the functionality. The third aspect, again, just like any other industry, automotive industry is no different. The use of AI and machine learning, AI and ML. These technologies, they can analyze a vast amount of data, and they are used to within the automotive industry. Also, they are being used very frequently. So that's another trend that I see. Focus on software security is another trend, and of course, the adoption of regulatory frameworks. So that's in a way, people have already started gearing towards that, because that's a reality that nobody can uh, get away from. So these standards are actually helping the industry shape up and cope up with the cybersecurity challenges. So these are the key trends, as I mentioned, which I see in the automotive industry. And in terms of how we kind of prepare, similar to this, invest in advanced security technologies, AI-driven threat detection, cloud-based security systems, invest in those aspects, understand that this is not a traditional vehicle anymore. With more and more capabilities on which you are introducing into the vehicle, the threat landscape increases, and you need to invest in these AI-driven solutions. Then, enhance collaboration between various car makers and suppliers and all those stakeholders. Knowledge sharing from that perspective is very important. Organizations need to prioritize continuous monitoring for those threats. That's something we already need to start thinking about, because if you're going to roll out a vehicle on the road, how are we going to monitor? And once we've monitored, how are we going to intimate them, or take action if we feel that there is something that's going wrong with the vehicle? And finally, very important, regularly update and patch your systems. Uh, from we need to figure out a way of how to do it the best. Which kind of, because it's a vehicle, right? It may go into areas where there is no connectivity, or where is low connectivity. So we have to kind of think of all of these things and then design the vehicle. So that's something that we have to do to stay ahead of the challenges, essentially. And that also brings me to the final point that you raised, which is regarding the skills for the cybersecurity professionals, I believe, right? I think most importantly, understand the automotive industry. That's one. Second, understand how a vehicle works from a technical perspective. Understand the vehicle networks. What is a controller area network, which is typically called a CAN, or a local interconnect network, Ethernet. All of these things from a technical perspective, the individuals need to start understanding. They need to get familiar, I believe, with the standards. As ISO 21434, as I mentioned, WP29, AIS 189, what's it coming? Be abreast with those changes. Understand from a risk assessment perspective, understand what kind of risks and use cases can be built on from a cybersecurity perspective. For example, uh, what if I get control over let's say, the headlight management system? Now, you may think, headlight management system, big deal. All you can do is probably uh, make some modification to the headlight. No, but it becomes very important, because through that are other critical systems like braking, steering control, which will come into the picture. At night, if somebody takes off your headlight remotely, then it is also a safety hazard. So think about a more holistic situation there. Then, I guess these are the main areas in terms of the skills. The other skills are very, kind of, let's say, related to software security, cryptography. Uh, but at the end of the day, everything boils down to your own education, your own, and how you kind of collaborate and communicate with others to kind of raise your knowledge levels. So that's probably the key skills that I'm looking at for, that people should kind of hone in. Understand the vehicle, understand the technicalities, understand the risks, and continuously learn, because this is an environment which will continuously keep on changing, and we need to be abreast about the skills. We can't be thinking about, we can't be thinking about, let's say, what we call an ICE vehicle in the age of EVs. So we have to continuously evolve. So that's, I guess, from a skills perspective, what my view is.
Thank you, Akshay. With that, we come to the end of this episode. Your expertise with your insights has illuminated the complex and the dynamic field of automotive cybersecurity. So, we're very grateful for the knowledge that you've shared, which is essential for both industry insiders as well as the everyday consumers. So, thank you so much for joining us today for this episode.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm actually glad to have had the opportunity to join you today, Pallavi. It's imperative, kind of, that we continue to elevate the conversation around cybersecurity in the automotive sector. So, thanks a lot once again.
Thank you. And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in today for this enlightening discussion. We hope you've gained actionable insights in the world of automotive cybersecurity. So be sure to join us for the next episode as we delve deeper into the pressing cybersecurity topics of our time. Stay informed, stay secured.